While the world's most powerful army was being brought to its knees by simple bushes, one mad mechanic with a blowtorch was about to pull off the most brilliant engineering heist in military history. June 6, 1944. The beaches of Normandy were a scene of absolute chaos. Amidst the smoke and the thunder of artillery, a Sherman tank named Fury took a direct hit. The crew, knowing the vehicle was a sitting duck, abandoned it to the sand. At that moment, it seemed the mission was over, but history is often made when one man refuses to walk away. Sergeant Curtis Cullen of the 102nd Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron watched this nightmare unfold day after day. He saw tanks approach a hedge, tilt up as they struggled to climb, and then erupt in flames as they were picked off. The crews rarely survived those encounters, and the ones who did were left traumatized. The medics were overwhelmed, and the morgue details worked overtime. The tactical situation was becoming desperate. Allied planners had expected to be 30 miles inland by this point, pushing toward Paris. Instead, they were stuck in a dense network of greenery, advancing only a few hundred yards a day. Every field was a separate battle, and every hedge was a new problem. The Germans didn't even need massive reinforcements. They just had to wait behind these natural barriers and destroy American armor as it exposed itself. Cullen was a man who understood machines. Before the war, he had been a mechanic in New Jersey, fixing cars and trucks. He didn't have a college education, but he understood leverage, force, and physics. As he watched yet another Sherman burn, something clicked in his mind. He realized the problem wasn't the hedgerows themselves, it was the way the tanks were trying to cross them. They were trying to go over them instead of through them. If you could somehow cut through the hedge at ground level, you could plow through it rather than climb it. This would mean the tank's vulnerable belly armor would never be exposed, and the Germans couldn't shoot what they couldn't see. But the question remained, how do you cut through 10 feet of compacted earth and ancient roots that had withstood centuries of weather? Cullen started sketching his ideas in a small notebook he always carried. His crewmates joked about it, saying he was going to solve the war with his little drawings. They meant it affectionately, but there was a layer of skepticism. Plenty of smart people had looked at the hedge problem and failed to solve it. Why would a sergeant from New Jersey be any different? Cullen ignored the doubters. He had learned long ago that people often underestimated mechanics. They assumed because you worked with your hands, you weren't using your mind. But every repair was a puzzle, and Cullen was a master at solving them. He saw the hedgerows as just another piece of stubborn machinery that needed to be persuaded. He just needed a broken tank, some scrap metal, and an officer crazy enough to let him try. That officer was Captain Samuel Morrison. Cullen approached him with a proposal that sounded like something out of a dream. He wanted to take a damaged Sherman tank and weld steel prongs to its front. These prongs would be made from German anti-tank obstacles called Czech hedgehogs, which were scattered all over the Normandy beaches. They would act like giant knives. The tank would ram into the hedgerows at full speed, and the prongs would dig in, ripping through the earth and roots to create a path. Morrison stared at him like he had lost his mind. He asked if Cullen really wanted to take a tank that had already been hit, weld scrap metal to it, and deliberately drive it into a wall. Cullen replied calmly that the current plan involved getting shot in the belly, whereas his plan kept the armor facing the enemy at all times. Morrison saw the logic. He gave Cullen 48 hours to build a prototype. Cullen and his crew went to work immediately. They scavenged acetylene torches and welding equipment, then headed back to the beaches. Those sands were littered with the very steel obstacles the Germans had hoped would stop the Allied landing craft. They were made of 3 heavy iron beams welded together, weighing hundreds of pounds. Cullen and his team cut them apart, trimming the beams to about 4 feet in length. They sharpened the tips and reinforced the welds. By the end of the first day, they had 4 steel prongs ready, each as thick as a man's leg. The next phase was welding them to the tank without compromising its movement. Cullen carefully calculated the angles. The prongs had to be low enough to dig in, but strong enough to withstand 30 tons of impact. As dawn broke on the second day, the modification was complete. The Sherman now had 4 steel tusks extending from its front, looking like a mechanical beast. The next morning, the Rhinoceros tank rolled toward a 12-foot-high hedge selected for the test. Officers gathered to watch, including Major Jack Williams from Division Headquarters. The engine roared, black smoke belched from the exhaust, and the tank charged. The impact was thunderous. Earth exploded, and roots snapped with sounds like rifle shots. For a second, the tank seemed to stall, but then it began to move forward. The prongs were working, digging deep and creating leverage. Suddenly, the Sherman burst through the other side, creating a perfect breach wide enough for other vehicles to follow. The gathered soldiers erupted in cheers. It was a revolution. Major Williams didn't just congratulate Cullen, he ordered 50 welders and all the steel they could find to modify 100 tanks by the end of the week. Cullen, ever the professional, insisted on a combat trial. He wanted to see how it performed under actual enemy fire. The next morning, he rode with the crew as they approached a German machine gun nest that had been holding up the advance for days. Instead of climbing the hedge, they hit it at a 20-degree angle, as Cullen had suggested. They ripped through the greenery and emerged on the other side, catching the German crew completely off guard. A single high-explosive round eliminated the threat. They continued their advance, breaching hedge after hedge. Then came the ultimate test, a German Panther tank. The Panther's gun could easily destroy a Sherman at range. Cullen ordered the driver to breach the hedge fast. They burst through, and because they had stayed level, their gun was already aimed. They fired first, hitting the Panther's thinner side armor and forcing the crew to surrender. Word of the success spread like wildfire. General Omar Bradley visited the site and found Cullen elbow-deep in a welding project. Bradley told him that while they had been throwing sophisticated engineering at the problem for weeks, Cullen had solved it in 2 days with scrap metal. He recommended Cullen for the Legion of Merit and authorized a field promotion to technical sergeant. Within days, every tank depot in Normandy was installing the Cullen Hedgerow Cutters. Assembly lines were set up in the fields, working around the clock. Cullen went from unit to unit, teaching welders the exact 15-degree downward angle needed for optimal cutting action. Skeptical soldiers turned into enthusiasts once they saw the Rhinoceros tanks in action. As the cutters saw widespread use, the soldiers in the field began to improve the design. Some added a 5th prong, others serrated the edges to tear through roots more effectively. Cullen embraced every single one of these changes. He believed that the best ideas came from the men actually using the equipment. One tank crew even added a debris-clearing mechanism inspired by farm equipment, allowing them to breach multiple hedges without stopping. The Germans were baffled. Their after-action reports showed confusion as to how Allied armor was passing through the impenetrable bocage without exposing themselves. Their countermeasures, like hidden mines and fake hedges, couldn't stop the momentum. By August 1944, the cutters were so successful that they became standard equipment, with new tanks arriving from the US having attachment points already built in. But the story didn't end in Normandy. As the Allies pushed into the open terrain of France, the cutters found new, unexpected uses. In urban warfare, the steel prongs were perfect for smashing through brick walls and wooden barricades, flushing out snipers. During river crossings, they provided extra traction on muddy banks. In the winter, they acted like massive snowplows, clearing paths for the infantry. During the Battle of the Bulge, the cutters were used to smash through tree roadblocks and even push disabled German tanks out of the way to clear supply routes. Cullen found it amusing that his bush cutter was being used for everything from urban demolition to heavy lifting. He continued to travel with engineering evaluation teams, taking notes and refining the tool. Despite the fame and the medals, Cullen struggled with the weight of his invention. He knew that by making the tanks more effective, he was helping to kill people faster. He expressed his guilt to a chaplain, wondering if he had made commanders too overconfident. The chaplain reminded him that his invention had shortened the war and saved countless American lives. Every day the war was shortened meant fewer people died on all sides. Cullen tried to accept this, but he remained a modest man. He didn't see himself as a hero like the men who stormed the beaches. He saw himself as a guy who had an idea and got lucky enough that someone listened. When Germany finally surrendered in May 1945, Cullen was with his unit in a small German town. The hedge cutters had played their part, accelerating the liberation of Paris and the crossing of the Rhine. Official citations credited the invention with materially contributing to the victory. Cullen returned home to New Jersey later that year and went right back to his old job fixing cars. He rarely spoke about the war. He didn't mention the Legion of Merit or the fact that he was a symbol of American ingenuity. He told his wife that he'd rather focus on fixing things now instead of how he helped break things then. In 1984, 40 years after D-Day, a historian tracked down a 73-year-old Cullen. When asked about his significance, Cullen gave a reply that perfectly captured the spirit of the era. He said he wasn't special, he was just a guy who saw a problem and knew how machines worked. He believed the special part was that the Army actually gave him a chance to try his idea. He wondered how many other good ideas from other soldiers had been dismissed because they didn't come from the right person. He died in 1963, a quiet man whose neighbors had no idea he had changed the course of World War II. Today, in military museums around the world, those crude steel prongs are still preserved on the fronts of Sherman tanks, a lasting tribute to the mad mechanic who refused to believe a problem was insoluble.